When someone has a new baby, the focus tends to be on the new baby, especially in the United States. But what if we have it wrong and the focus should be on the new mother? And this could actually prevent postpartum anxiety and depression.
In this video, I want to talk about the US culture. No, really the lack of it. And maybe that's the cause of postpartum anxiety and depression. Don't scroll away, just hear me out. With my own postpartum experience, I had me thinking, maybe there's more to it. So I read this book called The First 40 Days. If you haven't heard about it, essentially it's the first 40 days after a baby is born that the focus is on the new mother, and there are certain practices like food, drinks, how much activity the mom can do, or what exactly the mom shouldn't be doing in the first 40 days during postpartum period. And this is practiced all around the world for thousands of years. So when the baby is born, the mother is actually celebrated in the first 40 days. The focus is actually less on the newborn, which is really surprising. It's kind of opposite in the United States. So maybe we could learn from our ancestors or our neighbors around the world and see if we can prevent postpartum depression. During postpartum period, there's the physical recovery that happens. There's a lot of pain in the pelvic floor. There's a lot of adjustments, hormonal changes that are happening. But then there's also a mental shift that happens in our minds, and it's something that I definitely didn't prepare for. So when you're pregnant, there is so much focus on having a healthy pregnancy, what you should eat, vitamins to take, the birth plan that you're focusing on, and then of course the baby shower. It's a big deal here, and when it comes to the baby shower, a lot of the gifts is just really centered and focused onto the baby. There's a huge marketing campaign on baby products. Then towards the third trimester, there's preparing for labor, your birth plan, and then setting up the baby products like your bedside nursery or your nursery. And one thing that gets overlooked is the fourth trimester. The fourth trimester is also called the postpartum period. This is my third baby, and I feel so underprepared with the fourth trimester. You would think by now, being my third child, I would have gotten a hang of it or figured out what I really needed. Many cultures around the world call the postpartum period as confinement period or the quarantine period, and lasting between 21 days to 40 days. There are some common factors, and that is rest, eat nourishing foods, get lots of sleep, avoid chores, and the last one, have someone to talk to. Like some cultures, the woman is not even allowed to be left alone or allowed to have any crying spells. The Chinese call a 40-day confinement period, and it is to keep the yin and the yang balance. Don't quote me on this exactly. I'm not Chinese culture, but what happens is during the postpartum period after you give birth, there is such a huge shift in your hormones, and they want to make sure either yin or yang is balanced. And if it's imbalanced, that can cause symptoms like anxiety and postpartum depression. I am going to butcher all the cultural names, so I'm not going to try to even pronounce it. So there's a Chinese word for it. Latin America also practices it. They call it a quarantine period. In India, it's called Ayurveda. Korean, it's either a 21 to 30 day period, so it's a little bit shorter. In Indonesia, they have a practice of daily massages. In Malaysia, I know they use hot stone massages and belly wrapping. Jordan, Lebanon, Egypt, all these countries also practice a 40-day postpartum period. And there's the 5-5-5 rule. So that's really simple. After you have your baby, you have 5 days in bed, 5 days on the bed, and then you spend 5 days around the bed. If you can't do the math, that's 15 days, just over 2 weeks, and that's barely leaving your room, just within this spot right here that I'm in. The length of time that's practiced all around the world might also differ depending on what resources you have, how much money you have, and what is available around you. And if you're in America, 40 days sounds like a really long time. That's about 6 weeks. So maybe setting up a reasonable goal in mind instead of 40 days. Even the 5-5-5 rule is not too bad. That's 2 weeks. Regardless of the differences in the cultures, each one focuses on the postpartum period being the birth of the baby as like the highlight, and then it is not the end. There is a continuation of care that happens after the baby is born, and that is for the baby and the new mother, especially the new mother. And this doesn't matter if it's your first child or you've had multiple kids. It shows that care taken like this after the baby is born does lower the risk of postpartum anxiety and depression. So why is it not implemented in the United States? In these cultures, it celebrates the new mother as a something that she has done that's a triumph, a big deal in fact. She has gone through over 9 months of pregnancy and then birth, and this is something to be celebrated of. It's the complete opposite in the United States. During the baby shower, it's all the gifts that the new parents are getting for the new baby. In the birthing room, the focus is still on the new baby. And then when it comes to visitors, visitors are coming to see the new baby. So in this book, The First 40 Days, it talks about the gathering. And the gathering is a time to make preparations for the new baby. It does realize that because of the life that we live in, this modernized society, there is no way for many families to do a 40-day confinement period, especially here in the United States without any federally regulated maternity leave or paternity leave available. Many new parents are having to juggle between vacation time, sick time, PTO to even get any leave for the birth of their child before having to go back to work. Or they just don't have the financial means to take all this time off because, it's unpaid. The book breaks down the nesting period into 4 different categories. And the nesting period on many YouTubers that I see is all focused on this stuff: the bedside nursery, the rocking chair, baby clothes, diapers. You get the gist. This book was really cool because it focused on 4 areas that I did not even think about: food, home, support circle, and relationship. Let's go through them. The first one is food, which is pretty self-explanatory. So that is stocking up your pantry with, goods and items that are necessary that you go through a lot of, and then of course making lots of freezer meals. It does talk about having a food party, like a food cooking party instead of having a baby shower, which I thought that was a really good idea and I probably should have done that. Then it also talks about who's going to be making these foods during the postpartum period, planning that out, and then all the foods that you are making, try to focus on nutrient dense foods. Food is pretty straightforward. So let's move on to the second category, which is home. And that is the nesting area where the new mother will spend their first 40 days in. And that's most likely the bedroom or the bed, let's say. Because remember, 5 days in bed, 5 days on the bed, 5 days around the bed. So what does a new mother need? Maybe some extra pillows to help with breastfeeding support, or just sitting up, propping up with lots of extra pillows. Bedside table. I have one here. My little kiddos are using it as a craft station, but I had it next to my bed so that I was able to eat, put my drinks on here, a stash of snacks here, a rocking chair, nightlight, water bottle, because you're going to need so much water and food like no other during postpartum. So definitely have lots of food right next to you. Other things that you might want are heat pad, sitz bath, and then of course pads, diapers, more like diapers for the mom. Or you can call what are they called? Briefs. Any sprays like witch hazel, that's all going to be part of your nesting period for your postpartum care. Maybe I should just do a video of what I actually use during my postpartum period. And then lastly, the author mentioned your partner's area. What does your partner need? Having a discussion about what they need for their postpartum area, and are they okay with all the extra pillows and, you're pretty much taking home base in this small space. Don't skip out on the last 2 categories because I definitely did, and I think that's really, really important. That is support circle and relationship. So when it comes to support circle, it's talking about who you're actually going to be talking to when you need advice when it comes to the new baby. When you want to just discuss changes that are happening in your body during the postpartum period, bleeding, pain, abdominal cramping, maybe night sweats, all these changes that you want to discuss and have a discussion or just talk to for some advice, and then also newborn advice. A support circle nowadays might look like lactation consultant, midwife, a nurse that comes in, grandparents, aunts, uncles, friends, other moms that you know in the area. What I find sad is that support circle is now becoming Facebook groups. We're so separated, our neighbors are strangers, and now women still need this support circle and they're trying to find it on Facebook groups. There are so many Facebook groups where mothers are just pouring out their questions, their problems, they're venting their issues, and they're looking for advice online from other strangers. I did really like that the book also talked about naming some persons that you might just call just to talk to, not looking for advice or judgment, but just someone to listen to you talk about all the feelings that you're having at the moment. Because remember, during postpartum, there's like such a change in hormones, and that shift in hormones makes these emotions just kind of go crazy at the same time. The last group that I think is overlooked a lot is relationship, and this is to take time and have a discussion, a communication with your partner, and how your relationship is going to change when the new baby arrives. What limits there are for you as a new parent, or what limits your partner may have when it comes to caring for the new baby. When it comes to the relationship, you want to just not only discuss the changes that are going to be happening when the new baby arrives, but the expectations you have for your partner when there's a new baby, and the limits that you might have yourself. Like, when you reach a certain limit, maybe having a safe word or a key phrase to make sure that, that person can step in when necessary. I like the book's suggestion of a 20-minute focus period every single day with your partner. And that's 20 minutes uninterrupted time that you just get together with your partner. Details of the book, but I'm guessing it means without your phone, without the TV on, actually spending time, one-on-one together. So after finishing this book, I definitely have some regrets on how my postpartum period has been going and the lack of planning that I did. I should have read this book before this baby came out. I wanted to make sure I had a better postpartum experience, especially going through my second one. It wasn't really good. So for this one, I made freezer meals. I hired a weekly maid service that would come in once a week. I got my parents to stay with us 1 week after the baby was born. And my goal was to stay in bed for the first few days and really stay close to the bedroom and the bed for the first week. I live in a 2-story house, and I really didn't want to go downstairs for at least 1 week. But after 10 days postpartum, I was going up and down the stairs. And then 2 weeks postpartum, I was making meals and dinners for everybody in my family. And at bare minimum, I really should have stuck to that 5-5-5 rule at the bare minimum. Between the hormonal changes, the sleep deprivation, the afterbirth, breastfeeding, everything has really taken a toll on just not my physical but my mental health as well. I'm starting to think that modern day demands during postpartum period is what is causing postpartum anxiety, postpartum depression. Baby blues, I don't know, I'm not sure. I know 80% of women have baby blues at some point in their postpartum period. Modern day society doesn't allow us to go back to the old ways, where the quote, "it takes a village to raise a child" comes from. That village is now replaced with neighbors that are strangers. I hardly know my neighbors. Families are now spread apart. My family is all over the world. I don't have anybody locally, and a workplace structure that does not provide maternity leave. You are lucky if you are with a company that does provide paid maternity leave or paid paternity leave, especially. But the majority of us in the United States, that's not the case. Now women are seeking counsel and advice on Facebook groups, online, with other strangers. So what are you supposed to do, right? The expecting mother now needs to be an advocate for herself for the postpartum period. It needs to be planned as well. Just as the book mentioned, there needs to be that gathering phase that happens at the third trimester to plan for the fourth trimester. At the bare minimum, try to follow the 5-5-5 rule. And if you are the viewer are not pregnant, then be that village for somebody else. Not only support the new mother, but the whole family, the partner, the other kids that she may have, the household. Maybe this is the safeguard that we need to ward off mental health issues, to have breastfeeding to be successful, to even prevent incontinence, prevent hip pain, back pain that happens during postpartum and sometimes years after giving birth. Instead, what do? We celebrate the new mom that worked all the way up until labor, that went back to work early after just 2 weeks postpartum. or even attending meetings days after the baby is born. Look down upon and judge the mom who took time off early from work, who's spending all day in bed, in her bedroom, hiding from society during her resting time. And then making the new mom feel judged and having fear that staying in bed all day, maybe it just looks like they're lazy and they're being insensitive because they're not allowing new visitors or they don't want other people holding their baby. This whole experience has also made me realize how I could do better for new moms, new families. Many women in America navigate postpartum alone, behind closed doors, in the middle of the night. We're waking up for night feedings alone. Because we're alone and when we need somebody to talk to, we reach out to online strangers. Come on, let's do better. So watch this video next so you can learn what new moms really need to better support each other. And let's start normalizing new moms to rest and heal and start the conversation below. I'll see you in the next video. Bye.